I'm going live on your YouTube. And I'm going to go live on your Facebook.
I should tweet all this out too, shouldn't I?
Yeah, let's find out where we go. So now that I pressed all the buttons, you can say hello, but I'm going to go see if we're there.
Oh, so we're live on several platforms, no platforms. My mother is the only one that can see us. This is the beautiful thing about when you're doing a broadcast or podcast is you don't know who, if anyone, is actually listening. And having worked in the radio business for years, I always thought, especially when I did overnights, that there was nobody listening, like not a cab driver somewhere in his car, like nobody. And I was amazed to hear that people were up at 4 a.m. And, I'd say, if anybody's out there listening, just call in. Here's the phone number and request your favorite song. And I'll even give you a $25 voucher to, I'm trying to think of the name of the rib joint that used to advertise, but you don't know. And then when someone phones in, you're like, oh my God, you go, hi, I've been listening to you. Can you play Glenn Campbell? And you just, for sure, I get into a conversation with that person, right? Like for 5 minutes, because I was lonely, working 6-hour shifts. I'd say, okay, what's your name? And where do you work? And I'm going to give you, we didn't call it shout outs in those days, mention you on the air. So I had, there was one guy and he just listened all the time. He heard his name on the air and he told his friends. There was no recordings in those days. You couldn't whip out your phone and go, oh, listen to this. Here's the disc jockey mentioning my name on the air.
That's funny.
So you just never know if someone's listening or not. Are you listening, Mike?
Well, I'm listening to you because I'm now going to instruct you to just check your Twitter stream for a tweet I tagged you in right now.
Right.
Oh, and make sure I ask you, because there is a couple of questions from fans. Someone wants me to ask you what you think of having an NBA All-Star game this year. I hope I don't forget to do that one.
Ask me about that. All right, I'm going to set up here and we're going to go.
Okay, did you want to retweet the there's a link I tweeted at you for the YouTube?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go there.
So you tagged me in your
Always.
All right, so it should be on my thing here. My thing, listen to me.
But we are live on your YouTube, and the link is in your Twitter.
It is. Okay, so I'm going to retweet that.
Retweet that. I'm going to just do something similar. Hold on.
Done. Consider it retweeted.
And stand by. Talk to the people for, we have 2 more minutes here, and then we'll go live at 9:20. Okay. We're very punctual here.
Listen, don't hesitate to bring anything up because, I'm racking my brain. I'm going through my Twitter feed. What were we talking about? What were the big topics? What was everyone talking about Wednesday? And I didn't want, there are certain things that happened that I've maybe forgotten about over a couple of days. But if you made little notes and stuff like that, don't hesitate to jump in when you feel relevant. My only thing is I'm going to pause a little bit more now after my thought to hear if you're going to jump in, because a couple of people have mentioned, let Mike get a word in edgewise.
Who are these people? They're my big fans. Is that my mom said that? Who said that? Right. Okay, one more thing I want to check here.
Okay. Because I'm getting some subscribers on YouTube. It's, trickling in and stuff like that. But, the more stuff I post, the more little messages they're getting. Oh, what's Hebsy got here? Oh, he's got a sportscast here. Oh, it's his podcast here. Oh, okay.
Here we are. Okay, I'm just going to send one tweet and then we're going to rock and roll.
All right, man. Folks, this is a real producer. This is a producer you're looking at right there. You just host the show or
right.
Flip a couple of switches or whatever. He produces, man. And that's a different animal when you got social media. You gotta let people know we're live, we're happening.
This ain't Rogers, this ain't Bell. This is the real deal.
This
here.
Ain't no Rogers. Da, 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 da. This ain't no Bell. Da, 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 da.
Oh. We should record
show's
that.
For you.
Yeah, that's right, okay. Man. Get Uncle Neil on the show. Okay, so Hebsy Man, we are going live. Here we go.
Welcome to Hebsy on Sports, episode number 217. I'm Mark Hebscher in the Little Italy studio, Toronto Mike holding down the mothership in New Toronto, and a special guest with us today, right behind me, about 6 feet behind me, Otis the Cat.
Woo.
Has made an appearance. This is my cat. Okay, this was a feral cat that I got last spring, just when the pandemic, I guess, had begun right around then. Great cat, not an affectionate cat, not a lap cat at all. This is an outdoor cat. He's outdoors most of the time, even overnight. Like at 4 o'clock in the morning, I want to go outside. So like this morning at 4 a.m., this cat wants to go out. And it's like minus 18 or something like that out there.
Right.
And he wants to go out. I'm okay, go on out there. And I let him out, and I'm thinking, he's going to come back in a few minutes. He doesn't. Anyway, he just showed up. And he's crashed on the couch. Who knows what he was doing out there?
It's cold out there. It is. It's the coldest day of the year.
Yeah,
as Bruce Colburn would say.
So the Leafs, are they giving you a heart attack? Because they are with me. I'm not saying they should win every game, handily, but these 1-goal victories, these come from behind. These, get the winning goal with 6 minutes to go. They're giving me a heart attack, Mike. A heart attack. I'm telling you. But the win's a win, and the Leafs, the Leafs are ahead of Montreal in the standings, and really that's all that matters with this Canadian division. This is Ohio State, Michigan. This is Calgary, Edmonton. This is Boston, New York, right? This is Man City and Man U. As long as we beat them, as long as we're better than that team there, we're okay. And if we can win a Stanley Cup, great. But we got to be better than Montreal.
Absolutely.
People in Montreal are chirping, we haven't lost this year. We haven't lost this year. Well, we'll just see. We will just see. The Blue Jays signed a couple more players this week. Some folks like the moves. I have my reservations. I'll tell you about that. The Baseball Hall of Fame inducting a whopping 0 people this year, which begs the question, why do you even have a Hall of Fame unless you're going to, somebody, a token? I don't care. Not token, but, put an executive in there. Something, somewhere, somebody. But the Veterans Committee didn't meet this year because of COVID, and so they're delaying that. And, I don't know. Raptors still not up to par. What are they going to do? No OG Anunoby tonight against the Kings. Kyle Lowry, what if they don't go anywhere this year? You trade Kyle Lowry, the franchise. Think about that. We'll get into that as well. The National Women's Hockey League, the NWHL, is in some kind of trouble. They got a tournament bubble happening in Lake Placid. One of the teams has to opt out, COVID related. 6 teams, not anymore, 5 now. And they got PR problems as well, okay? And I don't know any of the teams. I don't know too many of the players, but I know that, come on, we got to give women's hockey a boost, right? But if they're going to shoot themselves in the skate, then I don't know. It's a nightmare. That's what they tell me. What questions would you ask if you were a reporter, a sports reporter? What questions would you ask the athlete or the coach on the podium during a Zoom call? Smart guy? You sure you wouldn't ask a stupid question? Are you sure that you wouldn't ask a stupid question? Because a lot of people are saying, hey, what's with these questions that these reporters are asking? What a stupid question that was. So we'll get into that. And our weekly look, it seems, at Sportsnet versus TSN, and which channel has the better on-air talent, the better production value, the better programming. Which do you prefer? Because you got to pick one, man. It's Coke, Pepsi.
Right.
You got to pick one. You can't say that, it doesn't matter to me. Or are you even paying attention? Do you even know who's doing the highlights? Whose voice that is? Who is that? Because you're just seeing a bunch of highlights, right? You're seeing highlights. Or do you really know the personalities?
Or do you even watch highlights anymore?
Very good.
Thank you.
And Mike, before we begin, I am completely off topic when it comes to sports because I do know and care about other things besides sports. I'm a fairly well-rounded individual. I have to recommend the Burt Reynolds documentary on Netflix.
Are you sure it's not on Crave?
Or Crave.
Because I almost watched it last night. I ended up watching.
Crave?
I saw it on Crave. It was.
I get the two mixed up. To me, it's like Sportsnet TSN. I'm not.
I never get them.
I know I watched it on a premium channel, a pay channel. I don't forget which one it was. Okay, it's on Crave.
The reason I never forget is because
Crave. You're right.
HBO is on Crave, and I find the HBO quality is so much superior to the typical Netflix quality.
It is. You're right about that. Anyway, you're right. HBO, and it's I Am Burt Reynolds, and it's really good. Highly recommend.
I'm going to check it out.
The last of the superstar actors. They are no more. And basically, If you saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
Of course. Yeah.
with Brad Pitt and Leo DiCaprio,
Mhm.
Brad Pitt's character is actually Burt Reynolds.
Oh.
Is the life that Burt Reynolds lived like as a stuntman before he became a superstar.
I could see
Kind
that.
of, there's a lot of similarities there. Anyway, I won't say anything more. 3 words for the Toronto Maple Leafs. That was close. It's so close. Every Leaf fan, every player, every observer is likely going, geez, that was close. So it's 4 words. Geez, that was close. Leafs beat the Oilers 4-3 last night, or early this morning here in the East, thanks to Austin Matthews' power play goal with about 6.5 minutes to go. The Leafs suffered a couple of lapses, as only Leaf teams can. It just seems, right? Like, yeah, things are looking good. We're all over this team. The other night they didn't allow a shot on goal for the first whatever minutes. They're just, and then in a short period of time, they look like, a high school team out there that just met each other for the first time. The Oilers came back twice in the third period on Leon Draisaitl goals, but then Austin Matthews with a quick score. Matthews from Kerfoot and TJ Brody on the power play. Now, if I would have said to you before last night's game, Matthews is going to score the winner on the power play, who do you think are going to get the assists?
Yeah, not those guys. No.
If you would have had the Kerfoot TJ Brody combo, man, you could have made some good money.
Right.
Anyway, that was a laser buy, and that's 2 games in a row. Marner a couple nights ago, and now this one. Although the Marner one was really overshadowed by that incident at the end of the game with Muzzin and Tkachuk. Is Brady Tkachuk? No, Matthew Tkachuk. Brady Tkachuk from Ottawa. He's a pain in the ass too. They're both like their father. They could probably wreck hotel rooms in their spare time. They're quite temperamental boys. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, Matthews, you're paying him all the big buck. That's what you want. You want him with the puck on his stick on the power play late in the game, tie game. Matt Marner, same thing. That's what we should be celebrating with the Leafs. Not Muzzin flipping the puck to, come on, Matthew.
So, for those of us who can you summarize the incident for me? The Muzzin.
Yes, here's what happened, Mike. At the end of the game, Matthew Tkachuk, who in their previous game against the Leafs had taken a run at Freddie Anderson, he's a cheap shot artist, right?
Right.
In the Brad Marchand role, and I get that, a pest and whatever, and intense and blah blah blah. I get that, but so he had already run Freddie Anderson, and a few of the guys in the Leafs were like, yeah, we're not going to let Tkachuk get away with stuff like that. And so at the end of the game, at which the Leafs had won, Tkachuk happened to be on the ice, and Muzzin flipped the puck towards him. He didn't fire it at him, right? He didn't lob it up in the air, but he didn't fire it at him either. Right. He flipped it. Easy for Tkachuk to just bat it out of the way, whatever, which he tried to do. And then he tried to hit it with his stick as well while it was in the air. And then he went after Muzzin, like he just chased right after Muzzin. And everybody was talking about that, and it was all over social media. Excuse me, and what a goof Tkachuk is, and why did Muzzin do that? And, a lot of people were like, very unprofessional. And you can tell which ones are Leaf fans and which ones are Leaf haters. You can just tell by the comments.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with who was right or wrong. It's your team, right?
Right.
So anyway, so at the end of the game, yeah, there was and after the game, everybody was talking about that. And to me, nobody was talking about, and others, no one was talking about the fantastic game-winning goal by Marner. That release, that was beautiful.
Good
Absolutely
stuff.
Beautiful.
Good stuff.
So so last night, Matthews scores, and Marner the other night, and the Leafs have now won 5 one-goal games and lead the Northern Division with 14 points after 9 games.
I just got to point out, of course, that we've played 2 more games than the dreaded Habs, and the Jets are up there too. The Jets are pretty close, and they've played 2 less games as well. So Leafs are at 9 games.
It's funny you mentioned, when we talk about that, games in hand, stuff like that. It's a shorter season this year.
Right.
But yeah, you always have to point out that the other team has this many games in hand, and it's important to do that. But as it stands, and that's the only way you can do it, as it stands right now, top of the table, as they say in England. You know what else I like about last night's game is the fact that they battled back. These were games that the Leafs would lose in bastards. Always end up, especially on the road. We would always lose these games. You know, late goal by McDavid, late goal by Draisaitl would be the winner for the other team.
Right.
But now we're scoring. And never mind that. We got the complementary scorers. Jumbo Joe Thornton is out. No problems. Jason Spezza, Wayne Simmons, each scoring last night. Come on. That's a beautiful thing.
Woo. Go Leafs, go.
It's a bonus. Freddie Anderson looked pretty good. Not great. But when he has to make the save, this to me is what has been missing with Freddie Anderson over the years. When you have to make the big save. And I don't care if you're down 2-1, you're up 2-1, it's a tie game, whatever. You got to make that save. You can't let that team score at that point. He comes through with those saves. Okay. Now, when you can afford to let a goal in, he does. You know what I mean? When you're up by 2 goals.
Is that like Grant Fuhr?
You can count on Freddie letting one in.
They said that was the Grant Fuhr model, right?
Yeah. I'll let it in when, look, I can let a goal in, no problem when we don't, when it, you know, right. I'm just going to make it a little tighter, but it's not like the tying goal or the go-ahead goal. It's the goal that cuts the 2-goal lead to a 1-goal lead. I'm okay. You know, as long as you win the game, I'm good with that. Right. Leafs and Oilers go at it again tomorrow night in the Oil City. It looks like Sheldon Keefe will go back to Freddie in goal. No point using Michael Hutchison, especially since the Leafs don't play again till next Thursday when they host Vancouver. And as you know by now, that would be 2 games in 3 nights. So Vancouver Thursday and Vancouver Saturday. And it'll be good to see another Canadian team. I'm getting tired of the Oilers.
So last night, actually, I didn't watch most of this game. I missed because I was watching The Wire with my 19-year-old. He says he wants to watch The Wire, so I've been revisiting it with him. But then I did watch like 10 minutes of the Leafs games, and my wife said, "Are we playing Edmonton again?" I said, because I guess she's seen a lot of Leafs Edmonton lately. She's from Edmonton, so she takes a note of it or whatever. And I'm like, well, there's only so many teams in this. We're going to see a lot of these teams over and over and over and over again. Like it's just the way it's going to be this year.
Right. I can tell you right now, after seeing I don't want to have a permanent Northern Division. Right. I got to see more teams.
Right. I'm with you. Variety is the spice of life.
It's like going out with the same 5 girls, right? You know, or it's like going to an all-inclusive, and it's like I said before, it's the same food. It's good the first time around, and then it's like again.
Right. No, absolutely. No, I think you're bang on. Variety is the spice of life, for sure.
I was really impressed the other night, the Calgary game. And I'm trying to think, this is another thing, is it used to be when you watch the games, it was the same announcers pretty much. Or you knew the distinction between the midweek games and the weekend games, but generally it was the same, you know, you'd hear the same voices, right?
Right.
And now I can't keep up now. I don't know. Jim Houston's not traveling because of COVID, apparently. And so we had Chris Cuthbert and Craig Simpson. Great, you know. And the other night, Chris Cuthbert and CC, Cassie Campbell.
Right.
I know it's Cassie Campbell Pascal.
Right.
But it's Cassie Campbell, you know, and I know that's her official married name and whatever, and she wants to be referred to that. But it's a bit of a tongue twister. Cassie Campbell Pascal. Cassie Campbell. And I really like Cassie. And let me tell you, I think she's been doing broadcasting of some sort for almost 20 years. And I remember when she was still playing, and I interviewed her many times too. And she was a very good interview. But I always thought that she was placed incorrectly by Hockey Night in Canada because they made her the rinkside reporter, the let's talk to the players reporter, the sideline reporter. And when I first heard her doing analysis, when she was on the broadcast, you know, play-by-play in color, she was fantastic. And I think it was I'm pretty sure it was for a women's World Cup event or something to that effect. But she was really good. And then I would see her again on Hockey Night in Canada standing rinkside, you know, kind of with the deer in the headlights look into the camera. And believe me, I know that look because I've had the same look myself.
Right. I
just always thought that Cassie Campbell would be better suited, like up in the booth or rinkside describing the game, like Ray Ferraro or Pierre Maguire. And she is now, and her and Chris Cuthbert sound like they've been doing it for years.
That's great. You know, I agree with you 100% that she's an analyst. So trying to like shoehorn her into some other role to get her on the broadcast doesn't make any sense. She's found her sweet spot here. And she does sound great with Chris Cuthbert. You're right.
She does. And she's better in the boxes with the, you know, when you got the panel.
Right.
And she's, you know, at home or whatever. And, you know, it's a Zoom call. Again, very expressive, not, you know, not afraid to, I know when you're doing rinkside reporting, usually there's a producer in your ear. Like, you know, you got maybe 40 seconds tops. See if you can get a couple questions in. Thanks very much. Boom, off you go. And even when you're doing your opening from rinkside, you don't have much time. It's all set up for you there. It's like, hi, welcome, and tonight, and on the other hand, here's the Oilers situation, and you get the producer going, 30, 20. And so you can't be as relaxed that way. It's not like you've got the puck and here's the defender right up in you and you're cool enough to skate away or make a move. If you're not, well-versed in live television or live anything for that matter,
right,
it can be a bit much. So anyway, she's done a terrific job. And, that's years of working in the business too. So never give up. Male, female, a person of color, disability, man, don't give up. You can see what hard work will get you.
Sage advice. And Hebsy, that's one to grow on.
Boy, they sound good together. I'd like to see them as a permanent duo, seriously. But again, here's what happens is, like, that last night's Leaf game was on TSN here in Ontario, right?
I can't remember, but yes,
it was
right.
Chris Cuthbert. It was, sorry. It was Gord Miller, Ray Ferraro.
Right.
But the game was also telecast on Sportsnet.
Was that like an Edmonton regional thing?
Correct.
Right.
Sportsnet West.
Right.
So this I find funny. No fans in the game, but like two crews, two broadcast crews.
Right.
Two different broadcast crews, host, play-by-play, analyst, I think, in the building. One doing it for Sportsnet West, Sportsnet Regional. The Oilers guy, and I can't think of his name now, and I apologize. He was their radio guy for years, and he got bumped up to TV when they bounced to Kevin Quinn and Drew Remedia. So it's him and Louis DeBrusque. So they're doing the game for Sportsnet West, which we can't get here in Ontario. It's blacked out.
Right.
Right. And we're watching the game on TSN. And I guess it's Leafs Regional because TSN doesn't have Leafs National.
It's Leafs Regional.
So it's Leafs Regional with Gord Miller and Ray Ferraro. Because when I'm watching the highlight packages again this morning, I noticed that when the NHL.com clips them, sometimes they're using Gord Miller and TSN's call, and sometimes they're using the Sportsnet West call with the Edmonton guy and Louis DeBrusque.
This is a fantastic segue to a topic I hope is coming next, where we talk about these highlight shows. But I think it's a good segue.
Mike, I'm gonna. Well, we're doing this. I have to switch here. And I apologize.
Here, let me. Yeah. No worries. I want to.
Hang on one sec.
Okay, sure. It's only a live program, Hebsy, but I'll hang on here. Hopefully we can talk about these highlight packages because, of course, I was raised on some show on Global you might have heard of with Hebsy and Taddy. And I've been busy with other things, but my interest in the highlight shows dwindles every single year. And I just wonder who's left tuning into these highlight shows we all kind of were amazed by in the 80s and 90s.
That was an article in The Athletic. Sean Fitzgerald wrote an article. Basically, I think it started with Ken Reed and Faisal Kamisa were on Sportsnet, and Ken's favorite expression is pucks in deep. He loves that expression, pucks in deep.
Right.
And so they were asking the viewers and players, I guess, to say, if you hear a clip of somebody going pucks in deep, please, let us know. And they're going to assemble a bunch of, like the Hebsy Awards,
right. Except
it's people saying pucks in deep.
Right.
Which, okay, that's cool. If that's why people tune in, great. Not necessarily my cup of tea, but hey, I have no problem with it at all. Because people are not tuning in to see the highlights necessarily. They've already got those. They saw them on their device. They saw it happen. They can dial it up on demand. I get that. And so this article by Fitzgerald was basically within, they quoted Jennifer Hedger as well, that when she started in 2002, it was about, let's look at the highlights. But now it's like if you don't show the San Jose, Arizona highlights, nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares. But they do want to hear people's opinions. They want to see more panel stuff, which I'm not sure. But personality, I agree that, I want to tune in for personality. And I get it. When I was on and with Jim, that was a personality-driven show. You knew what show you were watching.
Well, Jay and Dan is a modern-day example of like they.
And Tim and Sid as well.
Sure.
The difference being is that on the highlight shows, when they're actually doing highlight shows, and remember, Sportsnet 360 used to just run a loop of highlights, just nothing but highlight. Headline Sports. Before that, the Score was basically a loop of highlights, which people love to have it in the background. Oh, I missed the Leaf highlights. Don't worry, it'll be back in 5 minutes. Right? It's part of a loop.
Right. But the big change, Hebsy, to me, anyways, in this household, anyways, I can only speak for this household, is that if you're interested in the Leafs Oilers highlights, like YouTube has the succinct and crisp 5-minute everything you needed to know and see from the game on demand. And literally, like my son, my youngest, who has to go to bed before these games sometimes even start. That's basically, he watches the 5-minute version. Oh, look, your 88 Nylander scored, and he watches that. Like, he gets everything from that. So that to me is the big game changer in the highlight universe.
Without a doubt, my son's been doing that for years, over a decade. He'd wake up every morning and he would, he subscribed to the NBA. This one guy, I guess, would cull all the highlights, and he, like you say, into a 5 or 7 minute package.
Right.
And my son would watch it every morning, the way other people would, non-cord cutters would watch the score, or, the TSN's morning loop, or whatever it was.
So if you're Faisal Kamisa, who is he's still very young, and he has a bright future ahead of him, but his future, he can't be, his career peak can't be highlight guy, right? Like, I always wonder, is this a stepping stone to what Faisal Kamisa will be? Is it going to be a personality-driven show, sort of like the way, when Donovan Bennett appears on a show, it's his very strong personality and opinions that drive the content? Like, what I'm always wondering, like with a Laura Dykin, or randomly name somebody, like, is this the peak that we're going to be doing these highlights in 2021?
Yeah. I guess you have to reinvent yourself, or you have to go with the flow. It's different than when I started. Obviously, I started as a reporter. I had broadcast experience in radio, but as a reporter, you have to learn to put a story together with visuals.
Right.
First in radio, you have to have what's called actualities, which is the interview you did or the wild sound that you picked up on your tape recorder, which, the listener is, oh, what's going on there?
Right.
Putting them in the mood, but visually, obviously, it's a whole other story. It's very different. And people are like, we've got screens. We're used to looking at screens. Oh, look at that. There's your highlight. Oh, look at that. And so to be able to pick that up on your device, as you know, it takes away any reason to sit down in front of the big screen and at a particular time, unless it's for a live event, and watch a highlight show.
Well, that's the only time I see a highlight show now, is when I'm watching a live event and I haven't turned the channel yet, and then they start the highlight show.
As soon as the game is over.
Right.
And listen, for years, this has been a big beef. We just watched the Leaf game on TSN. As soon as the game is over, we're going to go back to the desk. This is so formulaic now.
Right.
We're going to go back to the desk.
Right.
The anchors are going to chit-chat. Oh, that was some game last night. Going to fill a little bit of time. And then when they're ready back at the game, at the site, they say, all right, let's go back to Buck Martinez and Dennis Schoeman. Let's go back to Gord Miller and Ray Ferraro. Let's hear what the coach had to say. Let's dial up the press conference.
Right.
All of that stuff. It's just very formulaic.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do about it. If I tell you that not that many years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I guess it is a long time ago, I'd sit on the Maple Leafs team charter next to Doug Gilmour. We would, talk about everything, your families, football, baseball, sometimes not hockey at all. And then eventually it was, no, you can't sit there. The players sit there, and your media, you sit there, but still in the same plane and on the bus.
Right.
Media's over here, players are back there. But on commercial flights, everybody would just sit amongst each other. Right? I mean, I'd be sitting next to Ty Domi, and they'd all want to play cards. And Domi would say, you got to move. I said, I'm not moving. So you got to move. We're playing cards. 4 of us are playing cards here. You play it on the armrests of the 4 aisle seats.
What are they playing there? Were they playing euchre? What were they playing?
Yeah. They play euchre.
That's
poker.
Okay.
They play gin.
Yes.
Cribbage sometimes, all kinds of stuff like that. So it's vastly different. Now you can't get anywhere near, and I mean physically now, especially during COVID, you can't get anywhere near a player. I mean, I remember we would go out, all the reporters, Mitch's area, Bill Bird, Don Martin, myself, Taddy, Andrea Carmen, Jerry Dobson before that, Rob Leth. You would go out, you'd make arrangements to interview a player or a couple of players. You'd meet them after practice, and you'd go to a coffee shop where they'd get in their street clothes, and you'd walk down the street, and your camera person would shoot them, and you'd do an interview, and you'd come back and put a story together.
Right.
Good story. Didn't know that about Gary Lehman, right? Didn't know that these guys lived together or these guys played minor hockey together. Don't have that anymore.
Oh.
Not as much anyway.
Yeah, and I guess later in the program we'll chat about the difference between like a Zoom question and an in-person question.
Yes, I'll give you a bit of background on that. It's that. See, the other thing is it's totally evolved. There was no such thing as a press conference after a game for the longest time. You go into the locker room, get your stuff that you needed, right?
So when did
write your story or whatever?
When did the scrums evolve? Like when did the scrums start showing up?
Oh, well, there was always scrums like during the playoffs. There would be more media. And so you would, grab a guy. You would see obviously way more media in playoff games.
Right.
But regular season games, I'm thinking, even in the mid 80s, when I started at Sportsline, if everyone was gathering around Boris Salming's stall, you would have CFRB, CKEY, so News Talk 1010, 590, which is not like the Fan. The Fan didn't even exist yet then, so you'd have CK. So let's say you'd have 3 CBC radio. You'd have 4 radio mics. You'd have CBC, CHCH, Global, CTV, City, 5. You'd have 5 TV mics. Okay, that's when there was a big story happening, man. And everybody was there. And you'd have your newspaper guys too.
Sure, of course. By the way, sorry, go on.
And then eventually, and it might have evolved because certain players were just like, I don't want to have to deal with this. Everybody crowded around my locker. Let's make it like it is in the playoffs, where you bring a player out. They started doing that in the I think early 90s, where you'd bring a player out to an area where all the media would be sitting there, and then the PR guy would say, okay, first question. But prior to that, I would say prior to the early 90s, man, it was like a free-for-all. Just, run into the locker room, get your quips, get your quotes. The coach might come out and say a few words to the assembled media. And then you'd put your story together, and if you had to meet a guy afterwards and you weren't on deadline to get some material for a sidebar or for a feature, you would do that. Totally different. Now it's like first person to ask the question, okay, and then you'd hear the clip. Now you hear the question and the clip. And back in the day, you never heard the question that was asked. It was a personal thing. Like if I want to find something out from you, and you and I are having a conversation, I'm not going to go, Mike, can you tell us about your relationship with your wife? But if you and I are sitting next to each other on a bench somewhere or whatever, it's just the two of us.
Right.
And say, do you mind if I ask you some family questions?
Right.
You might say, I'd rather not, or sure, because I've developed a relationship with you. Maybe we've gone back and forth for a couple of minutes, but some guy sitting out there and he looks out and he sees a whole bunch of people, unfamiliar faces. And here comes a question, from the darkness, is your team humiliated in there? Or,
right.
F you. That's what Milbury did with me.
I bet.
He was pissed. His team got beat 7-3. I had spoken to him the night before. He lost also, but he wasn't in as bad a mood. But after losing 2 games in a row, and here's some hotshot reporter who was on deadline from Toronto, asking me a question like that.
But he's a dink.
Humiliated in there. F you.
He's a notorious dink. So anyway, we're gonna talk about another notorious dink in a moment because we're switching to baseball. But first, a few quick notes. I just want to say Paul Rosen's watching us live, and he says he loves you, Hebsy. So,
Rosie.
Hey,
Rosie's a Canadian Paralympian. I
Oh,
believe 2-time gold medalist. And
Amazing.
Rosie, if I'm not mistaken, might have been the first Canadian athlete to represent Canada in the Paralympics in the summer and the winter Paralympics.
oh, wow.
He was a sledge hockey goalie and a gold medalist. And I believe in sitting volleyball. I could be wrong, but I'm sure Rosie will tell me.
And I thought Rosie was just a regular guy. Look at that. Amazing,
man.
amazing. Anthony. Anthony
gold
Nerona.
medalist for Canada. What are you talking about?
That's amazing. So
we've got some important people that watch and listen to the show, Mike.
Anthony,
not just your friends and mine.
Anthony Nerona, he's also an important person. He says he loved you and Taddy, and he was a huge fan of the Hebsy Awards. And finally, I want to just say hi to Brent Bishop, who says good morning to both of us. He's watching.
Right on. Oh yeah, these are good folks. And by the way, I'm going to be posting on the YouTube channel I'm going to post some Hebsy Awards. some old Hebsy awards. Because I've been watching the top 100 gaffes of the 21st century on a loop on one of the sports channels. Now, wait a second. That stuff's okay, but my stuff was better. I did the voiceovers live. I didn't use the announcer voiceover. Now they just stick stuff together and you hear, some disembodied voice going, there's a foul ball to the third baseline. Oh, I want to play my phone. I don't know who the guy was. I have no idea. That's different. Where were we now?
Baseball.
Yeah, pucks in deep.
I thought, this is a take you have that I think we disagree on. It doesn't happen too often, but I'm interested in you stating your case here, and then I will rebut.
All right. What do you have?
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us your take on the Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, in the fact nobody got in. I want to hear why you don't like that, and then I have a challenge.
I didn't say I didn't like it. It's just the way it is. It's not the first time it's happened either. No new inductees into the Baseball Hall of Fame this year. Only Kurt Schilling managed to get 70% of the votes. Not good enough to get into the Hall because the Baseball Hall of Fame is the toughest one to get into. You got to have 75% of the votes. Okay? 75%. That's an A.
I don't know.
It's not like, nothing against the NFL.
B+.
It puts like 6-8 guys in a year. But baseball was always like this.
Right.
Just that since the steroid era, some really, really, really good players are not going in because of, true or implied stories of them taking performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah, several players would have been first ballot Hall of Famers. I mean,
not necessarily first ballot.
Well, Roger Clemens would have been first ballot.
He likely would have been.
And Bonds
he was
too.
A dick anyway.
I know, but I still think 75 being the threshold. Clemens and Bonds, I believe, are first ballot Hall of Famers. If there's no
not first ballot, not at all.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to go back and look and see which guys were first ballot Hall of Fame.
Most career homers. I mean, we're talking about.
But I'm saying a lot. Yeah. First ballot means that you were so exceptional that there's no doubt in anyone's mind, that you get in first. I don't know who he was up against this first year. I don't know who.
But Hebsy, man, in this fantasy universe where there is no performance-enhancing drugs linked to Roger Clemens or Barry Bonds, without a doubt, how could you not vote for them in the Hall of Fame with their careers? Like these are,
because of how they got to those numbers.
Yes, I know, but this is a hypothetical universe where they were clean. So I guess it's a moot point because
I can't live in that universe, Mike. I can't, and I'll tell you why. Barry Bonds was a darn good player and maybe a Hall of Famer before he got into the steroids.
Right.
I'm talking prior to Mark McGwire in 1998 and Sammy Sosa when, and I don't know the numbers, but he was having a Hall of Fame career there. I mean, he wasn't hitting 70 home runs, but he was hitting 45 home runs, 50 home runs.
Sure. He was stealing bases too, remember? He was 40-40
stealing bases, a great all-around player.
Right.
And that's hard to say. But I think that just like once Pete Rose, once the commissioner threw those 8 guys out from the White Sox, the Black Sox scandal, the question has been, do we vote on a player's performance on the field only? Or have we expanded the criteria now, which they've done, to include sportsmanship and community service and, you know what I mean, in addition to what he's done on the field? In other words, if a guy was an amazing player on the field, but a total prick off the field,
right,
had no redeeming qualities except he could hit a baseball, let's say, versus today, where we look at people for any Hall of Fame as being a well-rounded representative of that Hall of Fame. Now, I have to tell you, even if Pete Rose would have gotten in, one of the biggest jerks that ever walked the earth, to me, would not have been a great representative for, hey, the Hall of Fame. Come on, folks, it's great. Come see all the other great players. It would be about him. So there's been this seismic shift now as to what is a Hall of Famer.
Right.
And I'll give you a great example. Someone will say about someone, usually in a eulogy, was a great ball player, but an even better ... What, Mike?
Person.
Right. Great player, even better person. That's the ultimate compliment. That not only were you tremendous at your field, your chosen endeavor, your profession, but as a human being, you were number one. And life's not like that. We know that. I mean, we know everyone's got faults, everybody. But now, if you had a couple of drunk driving charges against you, like Scott Rowland, maybe you're not a Hall of Famer. And can you equate 2 DWIs with domestic assault, with gambling, with cheating by putting stuff in your body that was illegal, injecting stuff? And let's go back before that. What about all these guys that took greenies, that took uppers? Were those performance enhancing? Was there checking? Did anybody care? For all I know, the managers were popping pills too, right? So either we unearth, every single mistake that was made, every single underhanded. What about spitballs? What about Phil Niekro all those years? With sandpaper and scuffing up balls. People have tried to cheat and gained an advantage in sport and in life forever. Tom Brady's balls. Come on. Complaints about hockey. The pucks in Toronto weren't frozen enough and bounced too much. And the ice in New York's Madison Square Garden was intentionally slow because the Rangers weren't a fast team. Right. Come on.
Right.
How about the guy in center field that's giving signals to the hitter as to what pitch is coming, banging on garbage pails? Oh, come on.
Right.
So we let them all in. So let them all in. Just your numbers. However you got those numbers, it doesn't matter. That guy never cheated and you did. You achieved the number, so you're in. Is that what we want? Or have we gone too far the other way? God forbid. You're a great baseball player, but you got caught drunk driving twice.
Well, let me ask you about the
man against drunk driving would say,
right?
Don't let him in the Hall of Fame. Not a good example.
Especially if they're a repeat offender. Now, I do want to talk about the man of the hour here, Curt Schilling, because it's fair to say that if Curt were less problematic in post-retirement life, he'd be in the Hall of Fame right now, right?
That's right. But Curt Schilling has these right-wing tendencies that, especially now, especially in the Trump era, are just not. They're not something you can overlook right now. Make your historical comparisons, go ahead. But in the eyes of a lot of people, and many of them have a vote for the Hall of Fame, Curt Schilling is a distasteful person, not someone whose speech they want to hear in Cooperstown. Like, you don't want Curt Schilling going up there with a microphone in his hand. You just don't.
Right.
Certain guys, yeah. Henry Aaron, when he got up there and spoke, eloquently and, from the heart. But I don't think Curt Schilling, great pitcher, bloody sock and World Series champion and Bulldog and all that, but not a speech at Cooperstown. Not that kind of.
But he came close.
He's already told.
He got 70% of the votes, which was
already told the Hall of Fame committee that he wants his name taken off the ballot next year. I don't think they do that. If you want, it's there. If people are going to vote for you, they're going to vote for you. But he figures he'll get in with the Veterans Committee. He says, in fact, there was something to the effect of, he said, I'd rather be voted in by people that know the game, people who know the game, suggesting that today's voters now, are not old school, don't understand what it took, whatever it is. So he figures the Veterans Committee will vote him in, and he's probably right. But if you look at his numbers, fantastic. Should be in the Hall of Fame. But
and you teased us off the top that you don't like it when there's no inductees into the Hall of Fame.
I think baseball could have made a special exemption, whatever it is, that they will induct somebody every year. Because it's something you should be looking forward to. And if it's an executive, if it's an umpire, if it's hey, maybe it's time to, I don't know if I don't believe there's a woman in the Baseball Hall of Fame. No, there is. One of the first owners in the Negro Leagues. I can't think of her name now. I believe is in, but anyway, why not that?
But what?
I mean, we're how many years into women's baseball, and
okay, but
you know,
if nobody was voted in, like I feel like this, like you don't want to have a quota where we need at least one. You know, like it's almost like the All-Star game when Brad Marsh would be in the. Well, you don't have to do it every year. Like
why not?
Because I like the bar being high. Like I don't want to lower the bar.
Well, no, I'm just saying instead of it being 75% of a vote from a committee for a player, have an executive.
Well, no one gets it.
Have someone that was important to the game internationally. You want to grow the game internationally? Okay. I love your hair, by the way. How do you get it to stand up like that?
I don't know. I can't see myself, but
listen. I'll tell you what. I don't disagree. Look, should Scott Rowland have gotten in? I don't think he's quite a Hall of Famer. You know, should Schilling have gotten in? Hey, if he wouldn't have said some of the things he says, he's a jerk. Right. Yeah, but you know, and if you've got one of those years where nobody gets voted in, then have another committee that says, well, we're going to induct this owner, not owner. Geez, I don't like owners getting in. Somebody that had something to do, a good thing for the game, to progress the game, right? Go find someone that's passed away and present it to their family. We appreciate what you've done for baseball. I don't know, come up with something. But come on, every year, honor baseball by inducting someone. Let's get to the Blue Jays now. How many future Hall of Famers on this team? Provided there's no cheating scandal. So there's George Springer. He's out.
Well, the bar, that's what I'm saying about the Baseball Hall of Fame. The bar is so high that there could easily be 0 future Hall of Fames on this Blue Jays team. I mean, Dave Steeb's not in that damn Hall of Fame, right? So I always think, he's not. So who's going to have a better career than Dave Steeb on this team? Well, possibly a few guys, but maybe none.
I think you're right. Mike, the line has been blurred. What is a Hall of Famer? Here's what a Hall of Famer is. A Hall of Famer is someone who is voted in. That's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, like Joe Carter.
Maybe not your vote, maybe not my vote.
Right.
Maybe not my first choice, but
also
it's a democratic process.
Like being really good, like if you're a Joe Carter who's going to get your 30 homers, 100 RBIs every season, and he's going to have a monumental walk-off homer in the World Series, like that's not going to get you very close to the Hall of Fame. So like it's really like go ahead.
And I'm sorry, Paul Henderson didn't do enough for hockey with his goal. He did enough for Canada,
right?
But it's the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's not the Canadian.
I think it was his birthday. Might have been his birthday yesterday.
Yeah, it was. It was a couple days ago.
Cool.
But again, I mean, this is hard. What is a Hall of Famer? They say the hallowed Hall of Fame. When Halls of Fame were first invented, when the first Hall of Fame, if to call it that, was erected, invented, what was the criteria? What was the original criteria to get into any Hall of Fame? You had to have been great. You had to have been great for a period of time. You had to have been dominant in your field, right? You're a Hall of Famer. You're way up there. You're on Mount Rushmore. Now, come on.
Right.
Since then, depending on the sport, depending on the whatever it is, the word Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hey, you're a Hall of Famer. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't have the same oomph. The same way winning an Olympic gold medal isn't the same, only because they've added so many more events over the years that people that won gold medals in the Olympics when there were only, so many track and field events or swimming or diving. Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of not, I don't want to use the word cheapen, watered down, but it's not as big a deal because it happens way more often, it seems. Am I right?
That's diluted it like it's inflation, basically.
Like if you were to say, for example, when you first heard the Cars and their music, did you go, that's a Hall of Fame band right there?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a good rock band.
So it's different. It's more longevity and or a couple of hits, maybe over a shorter period of time, and then somebody went on to individual stardom, all that kind of a thing. Right. But in a sports Hall of Fame, you're looking at an individual, a lot of times in a team sport. And that's where it's tough. Is Gehrig's in and Ruth is in because Ruth and Gehrig were like,
exceptionals.
Peaches and cream, exceptional. And if you look at their numbers, absolutely they were. They were killers.
Right.
Monsters.
Right.
You can't compare today's hitters with what Ruth and Gehrig did. But Ruth and Gehrig didn't have international plane travel. Ruth and Gehrig didn't have, they played mostly day games. Oh, they did play all day games back in those days, right? And there's just other factors. The pitching maybe wasn't as good. The conditioning wasn't as good.
There was segregation. There was segregation.
Segregation, of course. But also, just even the fact that they would bat third and fourth in the lineup, right? They got better pitches to hit. Ruth got better pitches to hit because the guy didn't want to throw that pitch to Gehrig, but then Gehrig got on base and he'd have to throw it to Ruth, right? So there's just all kinds of different factors. But I mean, that's why you play the game. But to sit back and let's look at the numbers and say, is that player worthy of the Hall of Fame? You're going to get all kinds of arguments. I'm going to give you a bunch of names here.
Sure.
Springer, Bichette, Vladdy Guerrero Jr., Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Teoscar Hernandez, Marcus Simeon, Cavan Biggio, Rowdy Tellez, Danny Jansen, Randall Grichuk. Any Hall of Famers, sir?
Oh, it's too early. First of all, a lot of those guys are just starting their career, but Springer's, you have to have that extended period of excellence, right? Like it's not just so. Right now, none of those are Hall of Famers. No.
How about Ryu, the pitcher?
Not yet.
Not yet. I like that. What about Steven Matz? Jays gave up 3 prospects for this guy. He had an ERA of 9 last year. He gave up 14 homers in 30 innings. And my spies tell me that once the Mets signed Aaron Loop, former Blue Jay, a lefty, then they just turned around and traded Matz. They probably were going to put him on waivers. I mean, he wasn't going to be a part of that team this year. We gave up 3. They weren't great prospects, but 3 players. Could have gotten him on waivers. So let's just see about this guy. I don't know. Their pitching is a little. What did they say? I know what it was. On the Ben Ennis and J.D. Bunkus show. They said they got holes like cheddar cheese.
Swiss is the one with holes. Swiss cheese.
Mixing your metaphors. Anyway, so yeah. Marcus Simeon, I think, Simeon, had one great year, 2019. An average player, an unspectacular player, a serviceable player. He'll be your second baseman this year. And Cavan Biggio is going to be your. What do you want me to do? DH today? Left-handed hitter. DH, play an outfield position. Spell this guy. Defensive replacement. Pinch runner. You could play third if he needed to. What's happening?
Well, I know we talked about this in a previous Hebsy on Sports, but the George Springer signing, it's still kind of mind-blowing just because it blows away all those like narratives that some of us fans were writing about this management team. Like it really does like this is evidence that we're willing to cut a massive check to go for it. Like it really, I would have bet against that happening.
2 years in a row, Mike.
I know. But somehow this one seems bigger for some reason.
We got the biggest fish in the free agent market last year. We got Ryu. Oh, pretty much.
Right.
And now a record signing Springer.
Right. So we can all shut up now about Atkins and Shapiro not.
No, because they're still the Yankees.
Well, I mean,
in our division.
No.
Right. Now, if we could have an all-Canadian division, we'd be okay with that. But we still got the Yankees in Boston and Tampa, Baltimore. Right. Anyway,
exciting.
Talk about the Raptors.
Okay.
Because baseball spring training is still a while away. But hey, good moves. See what happens. Pretty good batting order in this team.
Yeah.
Raptors are still languishing in 11th place in the East. They got a record of 7-11, but they're only half a game out of a playoff spot. Half a game out of a playoff spot. I think the Knicks are 8-11.
Right. There's hope.
So hey, I mean, things could turn around. They're looking a little bit better. I don't like blowing these leads all the time.
It was an awful start for this team, and I mean,
I don't like the way Kyle Lowry's playing.
So tell us, would you move him on for some prospects? What would you do with Kyle Lowry?
This is really tough. The trade deadline is the 25th of March. I have to believe that Kyle Lowry, at his best, with this team, the adjustments they've had to make, this is still a playoff team. Are they the best team in the East? No. Could they win playoff series? Yeah. Because they've got guys that have been there before and won championships. And there's a difference. Is that if you give Kyle Lowry enough rest, monitor his minutes, He's the guy I want with the ball in the playoffs. Same with Van Vliet. I want these guys leading my backcourt in the playoffs. If they finish 6th, fine. They play the 3rd-ranked team. I don't think there's anybody to me in the East that's so good that they scare the Raptors. Milwaukee, not that good. Right? Philadelphia, Raptors can beat Philly. And it's going to take time for the Raptors and for Nick Nurse to figure his rotation out. And he is. But you know what? You're close enough to the playoffs, I think, that you really got to keep Lowry. You know what? As much as you could get prospects, yeah, I think he would help the Raptors more than he would help any other team this year.
I think this particular...
I'd like to see him retire a Raptor.
I know, but we said that about Matt Sundin. And,
no. This is different. Matt Sundin never won a Stanley Cup, never even got the Leafs to the final.
That's true.
Never.
That's true.
Got us to the final. Ooh, Matt Sundin. We were all excited about Matt Sundin. He got us to a couple of semifinals, right?
Yeah, 2. Yeah.
Yeah. But come on, never got us to the final. Not even a sniff. Kyle Lowry helped us win a championship.
Right.
And has been here and has been a big supporter here. Not that Sundin wasn't a big supporter of the city of Toronto. Two different things. We won this guy won us a championship.
Agreed. Hebsy, big difference. You're right. Sundin never got us to a final. But I do remember distinctly that when Sundin refused to be traded. I guess he had a no trade clause. And then he signed with Vancouver halfway through the next season or something like that. And I just remember the whole concept that if you weren't going to allow yourself to be traded, it was because you were going to retire Maple Leaf. But the whole idea that you would sign for Vancouver, it just kind of, can I swear on Hebsy on Sports? Sure, it fucked us because we could have, at the trade deadline, we could have shipped off Matt Sundin for prospects and draft picks and all those things. He was a jerk. And I don't even mean, I just meant they're both classy guys who did their best for long times in this market. But you're right. Kyle did something that Sundin never did. Kyle delivered a championship. That's why I want to erect a statue of Kyle Lowry, yesterday. I think this guy is the man.
That'll be quite an erection. All right. The National Women's Hockey League. If you remember last year, a few years, there was a Canadian Women's Hockey League.
Yes.
And there was a National Women's Hockey League. And because of numerous problems, and especially at the top, the people leading, the CWHL is no longer, and there's the National Women's Hockey League. Toronto's got a team. Buffalo's got a team. There's a team in Minnesota, I think. I don't even know. I'll be honest with you. The league is getting great exposure this year on TV. NBC Sports Network is scheduled to air the semifinal and the final from Lake Placid. They're playing in a bubble. There's 6 teams playing in a bubble.
Right.
But there's not 6 teams now because one of the teams, the Metropolitan Riveters, have opted out due to a number of its people contracting COVID-19.
Some bubble.
So you had 6 teams in a bubble. They were going to play, I believe they're playing 5 regular season games, a round robin-y, and then there's a semifinal and a final, and then declare a champion in a couple weeks from now. It's a short bubble thing.
Okay.
And so now the National Women's Hockey League was getting, some sponsorship. And some of that sponsorship was coming from a company called Barstool Sports. Now, I don't know if you ever heard of Barstool Sports before, Mike.
Oh, yes.
Pretty popular and somewhat controversial. And so Barstool Sports had a reputation. First of all, Barstool Sports is a company that in 5 years has gone from a $15 million company to a $450 million company and are close to $1 billion now. They've got sports talk. They've got podcasts. They've got video. They've got satellite radio shows and a successful website. And 3 of the 4 executives are women. Yet the players and other people associated with the National Women's Hockey League have gone out of their way to tell anyone listening to not be associated with Barstool Sports because they are perceived as a misogynistic and white supremacist by some organization.
Wow.
Now, one player, in fact, and I don't know who this player is, and I don't even know if I want to even, I don't care, but one player tweeted out that Barstool Sports are white supremacists, to which one of the executives said, I think that might be slanderous, isn't it?
Yes.
Be slanderous. Because they are not a white supremacist organization. They have people of color working for them. And they're not a misogynistic organization because 3 of the 4 executives are women, including CEO Erica Nardini, who's such a huge hockey fan that they went out and they sponsored for thousands of dollars the National Women's Hockey League. And part of that agreement, advertising agreement, was that the players and coaches would be available to be guests on Barstool's podcasts. Right? Look, we'll promote you. You promote us. We'll get you on our shows.
Sure.
We'll talk about women's hockey. We'll talk about your lives. We'll give you a platform.
Which is what they need. Yeah.
Which is what they need. But instead, people are going, no, Barstool Sports. Their reputation would be similar to the reputation that Howard Stern had when people only knew Howard Stern as a foul-mouthed disc jockey who liked strippers.
Right.
When in fact, Howard Stern, one of the most brilliant interviewers and worldwide personalities. Am I right?
I agree with that, yes.
So, but at first it was, Howard Stern. I know him. He does poop jokes and
right, or he'll have a
masturbation and
porno stars and yes, of course. Yeah, right.
And Barstool Sports' reputation is similar to some people who don't know any different. And they're going, that's those misogynistic guys saying terrible things about women. They had a couple of women that had worked there who had quit because they didn't like the way the conversations were going. But people really didn't dig that deep into Barstool Sports and didn't realize the CEO is a woman, which means she probably signs off on the content there and is perfectly fine with what's being said.
No.
And she's even said she wants to own her own hockey team. And so what are they doing to Barstool Sports? Well, besides suggesting that they're white supremacists, which is ludicrous and, like I said, possibly slanderous, Hemal Javeri on Twitter, who has thousands and thousands of followers, a woman, Hemal Javeri on Twitter, quote, "The league can't get away with those weak end racism patches while at the same time appearing on a Barstool podcast. The NWHL needs to do better."
Hebsy, man, if I may, and I'm not too familiar with the content from Barstool Sports. It's not really my cup of tea, but you could probably draw a line from bro culture to misogyny, and I could probably see some line drawn there. What I don't understand is where's the white supremacy allegations coming from?
Right.
I don't know.
It's coming from the way I understand it, it's a person of color who is a player in the NWHL or a former player.
Okay.
But these are people that supposedly are looking out for the best interests of the NWHL. And part of that is don't associate yourself with Barstool Sports,
gotcha,
which happens to be a major sponsor and is giving the league this tremendous platform. And it's more than one platform. Like I said, Mike,
right,
satellite radio, podcasts,
right,
videos.
And this league, I can tell
morning talk shows.
As a hockey fan, I can tell you what this league needs is awareness. Like just, that's a great, that's what they need. They need to be out there so that we can become aware of the
right. This is from Devo Fangirl. Quote, "The NWHL should distance themselves from toxic brands like Barstool. It's like associating with Trump. Just pure cancer to your brand. F Barstool and anyone who supports them." Wow. Now, if I'm supporting something, and part of that support is ensuring that the bad element doesn't get a hold of this, I would have to be really, really narrow-minded to choose between pumping up my product or cutting down what I thought was something that was going to be detrimental to my product or service. And this is the route that people have chosen. And this is where the problem is. Mm-hmm. They're not on the same page. The National Women's Hockey League should be bending over backwards, thanking their lucky stars that a CEO of an almost $1 billion company has her own hockey podcast, female hockey podcast, on the company that she runs. She's the CEO, and encourages others, hockey fans, to support the National Women's Hockey League. And she wants to own a team. How much better can you get than that? Imagine if you had a female CEO that hated hockey. Well, I'm not going to spend any money. We're not going to advertise on their broadcast. We're not going to have a relationship with them. What's all that about? So anyway, so these supporters of the National Women's Hockey League had better get their act together, because not only have they just lost one of the 6 teams that's playing in a bubble because there's COVID issues, but now they've got this PR nightmare with a company that is as supportive, if not more, than any other company. And NBC Sports Network, by the way, after this year is going to be kaput anyway. That's what I hear. So
right.
This is your big year.
Crazy, man. Crazy times.
And Mike, again, I don't know the teams. All I do is I know that I see on Twitter, and I see a lot of big name sports reporters and anchors and such tweeting out stuff about the National Women's Hockey League.
How do we watch it? Like, is it streamed?
Yeah.
Okay. Because my awareness is near zero. So I,
right.
you know.
I mean, I see, Lance Hornby and other writers, hey, here's what's happening in the NWHL.
Okay.
Remember, you can't go to any games. I haven't seen any highlights. I don't know who the players are, but I do know they're playing in Lake Placid in a bubble. But
Sportsnet and TSN neither has picked up any of these broadcasting rights.
Not as far as I know.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, big thing on Twitter and social media. Whenever people hear a press conference and they hear the voice of a reporter asking a question, for the most part, people are, that's a stupid question. What a stupid question. And the reason is twofold. One is they hear it kind of blurted out going, oh, I would never ask that question, because you know what the response is going to be like. Why would you ask a stupid question like that? The other one is the response of the recipient of the question, the interviewee.
Right.
So if I'm sitting at a podium and it's just me and there's a camera in front of me, and even if there was a bunch of reporters sitting in a room, and I'm like this, and I hear a question, my facial expression is going to probably give away whether I like the question or I don't like the question.
Sure.
So 2 things here. There's no such thing as a stupid question. There's not. Stupid answers, yeah. But stupid questions, no. Because your job is to ask a question, any question, to elicit an answer. Trust me when I tell you, you could think of the greatest question in the world to frame it. You're all set to go here. Now here comes the coach. Here comes the player. It all goes out the window. It goes out the window.
Is it tougher in Zoom than in person? Like, is that a tougher way?
I wouldn't know.
Because you're disassociated?
If they, on Zoom, normally what happens is the PR director says, Steve Simmons, Toronto Sun.
Right.
So that the recipient, the interviewee, now knows who's asking the question.
Right. And if you have a reputation, then you brace yourself for something, and then you react because you're kind of like
you're
setting
ready.
Yourself up to be like pissed off at the stupid question.
Right. So on Twitter, people are going, I wonder who's going to ask the first dumb question. Is it going to be Steve Simmons or Rosie DiMano? Now, let me tell you, it takes guts. You got to have guts to be the one, your voice is the one being heard, to ask the question that nobody else wants to ask. It's easy to sit there with your microphone or whatever and just let someone else ask the question, right? But the cheapest way is when someone asks a question and the recipient goes, oh, that's a stupid question, or, what a jerk you are, or whatever. And that ends up becoming the highlight of the press conference. Jakub Voracek calling out a reporter because he doesn't like him, he's a piece of shit or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what it's come down to.
Agenda.
Is we're now looking at these clips. Well, sure, if that reporter wouldn't have asked that question,
right,
you wouldn't have gotten that.
Okay, let me add. Yeah,
and I don't like that at all.
So Hebsy, for all the listeners who love Hebsy Man listening to us right now, if you right now had George Springer on this Zoom call, what question would you ask George Springer?
Well, here's the thing. If George Springer is going to be talking to everyone and it's going to be, all right, first question comes from Mark Hebscher, then my first question would be, George, congratulations. Welcome to Toronto. You know you're going to get asked this question, so I may as well get it out of the way. Do you think the cheating scandal is going to have any effect? Now, I think if you phrase it that way, George is going to come and go, I expected I might hear something like this. But someone might ask the question this way. George, do you think being a cheater is going to affect your relationship with your teammates?
Right.
And it comes from someone who asks questions in such a way that you're immediately put on the defensive.
Right.
You sometimes hear, and this, again, I don't like this at all, and I've done it myself. Someone asks you a question that's right in your wheelhouse. maybe it's a softball question, but it's right in your wheelhouse. And you go, well, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Right.
Because that makes me think now, as opposed to just react. I got to think now. That's a good question. And as they're saying that's a good question, they're trying to formulate their answer.
Right. It's like a crutch.
That's a really good question. They say it twice, maybe, because they're formulating now.
Right.
It was a good question. All the other questions were not.
Right.
So it's either, do you want to be known as the one that the player or coach goes, that's a good question? Or do you want to be known as the one where the player or coach goes, that's a stupid question? You can't have it both ways. The more questions you ask, the more likely you are to get someone going, that's a stupid question, and someone else going, that's a good question. It's like panning for gold.
Right.
You don't know. Yeah, I don't want to answer that. I don't want to answer that. I don't want to answer that. Okay, I'll answer that. Probing questions.
Hebsy, I know we've come to the end of the program, but I had a couple of quick questions from listeners who tweeted questions, and then I totally forgot to document them. So JP, who listens to Hebsy on Sports every week, he says, ask Hebsy what he thinks of having an NBA All-Star game this year.
No way. They haven't even come up with the second half of their schedule. What they all need is they'll all need to rest.
Right.
And be able to decompress, I guess. But no, an All-Star game this year, nobody in the stands. That's all. I mean, if ever you needed people in the stands, it's for the All-Star game.
Yeah, 100%.
Regular season game.
Yeah.
All-Star game?
Right.
So the answer is no.
And big fan of yours, Matt Layden from Edmonton, Alberta. He wants to know, what do you think of Caroline Shved quitting Sportsnet? Caroline Shved. What? Okay, so Caroline Shved, who you might know from some of those highlight shows that we talked about, but she does like best of.
Yeah, the best of and the misplays of the week and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Also a bit of guest on Toronto Mike, so shout her out.
Yes, she was. That's right. She did some of those commercials too with for a car with Andre DeGrasse and another athlete.
Oh, she did do like Kentucky Fried Chicken, maybe. Was it KFC? I don't know. It was a car. I thought. Anyway,
she quit Sportsnet.
Apparently,
she didn't really have a role there, though, did she? She wasn't an anchor.
I thought she did like wrestling shows, like.
Yeah.
I don't watch the wrestling show, but like Aftermath, maybe, or something.
It could be, but remember, Sportsnet. I mean, Brandon Dunlop, Dave Randorf. I know I'm missing out on some people. Oh, Nikki Reyes.
Right.
Others are not there anymore. And Caroline, I guess, was part of that. What role do we have?
Right.
And those are shrinking roles. And those are, look at the Tim and Sid thing. They've got a month to kind of figure out how, where are we going to go with this television show? Sid's going to City TV. Which way are we going to go with this baby?
That's an interesting one, and I know we're up against it here, but the Tim and Sid brand.
Why are we up against it, Mike? Why do you say we're up against it?
Because I schedule other things around Hebsy on Sports, but it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. That's how the sausage gets made.
You want me to wrap it up?
No, because I'm the one asking. I'm the one
do.
of the bonus questions here. Tim and Sid. Decades making that brand. The brand is everything, right? Like Tim and Sid is now this brand in the market. I'm still kind of amazed that they're, I know that breakfast television is important, but Sid 6-0, there's something must have happened there, because if Sid 6-0 is your only option to save breakfast television, you're going to destroy this Tim and Sid brand that you spent so many marketing dollars and so many years building. Like think about that. That must be a Sid 6-0 saying, I want to do more than sports.
Mike, what's the average length of a program duo? Let's just say.
I don't know.
What would be your
10
average
years.
length of a successful combination of two people doing a show together?
Well, Siskel and Ebert went as long as they could until Siskel passed away. So I don't know.
Siskel and Ebert was a once a week show where they reviewed 3 or 4 movies. It's a bit different.
It's fantastic.
It's a bit different.
Okay. I don't know. What's the answer?
Taddy and I worked together for 11 years.
Right.
I thought it was very good. And, by the 11th year, we were both ready for a change.
All right. So
I can only use that as my example there.
I think Sid goes to management and says, I want to spread my wings and do more than sports for this organization. And then they said, well, then there is a spot open. They let go Roger Peterson, and they never filled that spot on breakfast television. So I guess there was a spot for a male co-host, as they say.
The personnel of a morning show, they're there to sell coffee and promote all the other shows. Right?
I don't watch, but I am aware of all the breakfast television happening.
Well, breakfast television is for like moms that own minivans.
I don't know. I don't watch.
That's their target audience.
Right. Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but any morning show's target audience is females 18 to 65 or 25 to 65. Am I right?
Yeah, sounds about right to me.
Their target audience is not males. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct, I think. I think you're correct.
All right. That'll do it for episode number 217 of Hebsy on Sports. Thanks as always to Toronto Mike for production, inspiration, and asking the tough questions. Not the stupid questions, the good questions. And thanks to you for listening and watching. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you haven't already, tell your friends. Really would appreciate it. We're on every Friday morning, 9:20 Eastern Time, where you're watching us right now or listening. And like I say, tell your friends. We're into it. No bull on this show, Mike.
And we're also, fun fact, we're also a podcast.
Yeah, we're also a podcast. And the podcast numbers have gotten quite large.
Yeah, that's the fun thing is you're a TV.
Pandemic, they've discovered a podcast.
You're a TV star, so you think video, and you're a great video star. But the bulk of your listeners are listening via podcast. Fun fact.
It's true. It's so true. At their own leisure. So thank you all. Thanks for allowing us into your headspace. Back with another exciting episode of Hebsy on Sports. But watch for updates on the YouTube channel, because sometimes I see stuff that's just so good that I have to post it. And the odd sports commentary, because I don't know if I can go a week without talking sports with you, for you. Anyway, until our next meeting, so long for now. This podcast has been produced by TMDS and accelerated by Roam Phone. Roam Phone brings you the most reliable virtual phone service to run your business and protect your home number from unwanted calls. Visit roamphone.ca to get started.
Boom. Goes the dynamite.
Nice.
All right, let me turn off our live streams here. So goodbye, everybody watching live.
Bye, everybody watching.